어, 어, Hi, Walter.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Hi, Laura. Hi, Emily.
Hello.
Looks like only a few of us are online today.
Like the group is getting a little smaller.
Yep, very good.
Good morning.
Morning.
I need to
Good
turn on
morning.
There you go.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
No? Can you hear me now? Oh,
It's
okay.
on.
Yep, it's on. Good morning. No, no dice? Hello, there we go. Okay, we have to get up close and personal with this thing. Good morning, everybody. I guess it's afternoon now, sorry.
Good afternoon.
Such a professional organization. Welcome to our meeting here today. We are very fortunate to have Donna Jean Mackinnon joining us as our speaker, and Donna's brought a few friends with her to come just to hear her talk. Are you guys all members of this club? Oh, okay, sorry. I just wondered if you were members here, but friends of hers, well, welcome, and we're glad to have you here with us. Okay, well, we can find another chair when your other friend gets here. Oh, hang on a second, I need to get my phone. So reflection today, I wanted to share with you something I saw this morning. On Instagram, I follow a page called Upworthy. Don't know whether any of you know it, but they publish stories that make you feel good. And I think, I don't, like many of the rest of you, I really need that. So this morning's story was about a man who found out he had 12 to 18 months to live. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer. This guy's name is Doug. I don't know what his last name is. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer back in 2021. Earlier this year, he discovered that the cancer had spread. It was now stage 4, and they were giving him a little over a year. So he decided to take the time that he had left and go out and serve others. He created a tour called Dying to Serve. And his goal is to visit and volunteer in all 50 states across the US to show others how much good one person can do. He's almost halfway through. He has served at soup kitchens, food banks, and many, many more. There's some pictures of him in this article of food bank in Wyoming, serving at a soup kitchen, serving at Habitat for Humanity, one of our friends, our favorites. And it's good for him, it's good for the people he's serving, but he's also serving as an inspiration to others. He's received a number of correspondence saying, you are inspiring me to go out and do more. So I think that sometimes it can be discouraging when we're doing hard work for helping others, that we're not maybe seeing the impact, but I think we're probably having much more of an impact than we realize. So that's something I wanted to bring to your attention. I'm now going to move on to our speaker. Sorry. And I confess, we just have the promotional material for you. Is it all right if I read that, or would you rather have your own? So our speaker this morning is Donna Jean Mackinnon. And she is the author, book she's brought with her, News Girls, Gutsy Pioneers in Canada's Newsrooms. In News Girls, Toronto author Donna Jean Mackinnon documents the lives of 10 leading female reporters who started their careers during the newspaper's golden age. Mackinnon's fascinating, often amusing PowerPoint presentation includes a slew of vintage photos and intimate anecdotes. Trailblazers in their fields, these adventurous news hens, as they came to be known, covered every beat from art openings, fashion, crime, politics, to major social issues of the day. One of these featured journalists is Heliconian club member Kay Kritzweiser. Sorry, Kreitzweiser? You can correct me.
Well, that was promotion for the Heliconian Club.
Oh, okay. So they're tooting their own horn, which is fine, absolutely. With the well-known Globe and Mail art critic who passed away in 2009. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Donna Jean, who's going to tell you all about her book and her experiences, and maybe tell you a little bit about her life.
I don't know how I'm gonna do this, hold this, and.
Well, let's put this in there. It's for you.
Yeah, let's see if we can get this
Yeah.
to, if we bring it right to your lips.
That's great, yes.
I'll get out of the way and we'll see if that works. If it doesn't, we'll figure it out.
Okay, so all you do is push the space bar. Just push that
Oh,
button. You'll get it. You'll get it. I believe in you. You can do it. Just push the button.
Hello, everybody. In News Girls, I tell the stories of 10 gutsy female reporters who started out in Canadian newsrooms before the women's liberation movement of the 60s. They all succeeded in a male environment.
Yes.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Each of these news hens, as they were called then, out-scooped all the male reporters like Pierre Burton and Gordon Sinclair, who everybody knew about, and absolutely nobody except myself have documented their careers, thus News Girls. And good luck for a lot of these news girls, including people like June Callwood. They started their careers as cub reporters during World War II because gutsy macho editors had to hire girls or do without staff for the obvious reason all the young men were fighting in the trenches in Europe. Anyway, and News Girls results from one-on-one interviews. I did not interview any dead people. I knew all the news girls featured in the book personally. So this is all tete-a-tete information. Anyway, I will start on with our cover girl. First of all, once upon a time, there was a Lois Lane. In fact, there were many of them, as you will hear. On the cover, you see Angela Burke. She's the one carrying the big camera. She's from the Toronto Star, 1956. Angela is in a scrum of reporters waiting in New York to board a ship for Grace Kelly's wedding. Angela was the pet of the Star publisher, so we gave her an expense account that allowed her to spend as she will. Angela bought about Balenciaga ball gowns, which I saw hanging in her cupboard in Toronto. She bought airfares, first-class hotels, and she also received many royal invitations. But as you will hear, she wasn't just a pretty face. This is June Callwood. A lot of you will probably recognize her. She started at the Brantford Expositor in 1942. Later, she was a freelance columnist for the Globe, Liberty Magazine. And here she is at the typewriter at the Toronto Star newsroom. Note the big black typewriter. This is 1966. June became a social activist and was involved in Nellie's facility for abused women and Casey House for AIDS victims. But as you will, and later the Star dubbed her St. June of Toronto. Angela Burke, this is our cover girl. She's on assignment for the Toronto Star again, 1955. She's carrying the latest invention, an Olivetti portable typewriter. That's the big bag hanging from her hand. She was heading for the Soviet Union. Angela was the first person on the planet to take videos of Khrushchev, Bulganin, and the other thugs ruling the Soviet Union. At a Moscow press conference, Angela asked Khrushchev, could she go and visit the infamous salt mines in Siberia? And Khrushchev said, Miss Burke, you can go if you care to walk. Whoop, I don't know how to go back. Oh God, there I found it. Okay, this is the first time I've had to change the pictures myself. So,
You're doing a great job.
so anyway, here we have Joan Holleben. Joan was a British immigrant. In 1955, she was hired by the North Bay Nugget. Not much to do in North Bay in 1950s. So Joan joined the boys judo club. Here she is throwing one of the reporters on the Nugget. After the Nugget, Joan was recruited by the Globe and Mail and became an award-winning medical reporter. Here we have Augusta Dusty Weinberg, Montreal Star, 1960s. Dusty was so aggressive in the Montreal Star newsroom. She terrified all the male editors. So they let her do what she wanted as a roving reporter. Dusty's heyday was Expo 67. She interviewed everyone from artist Alexander Calder to cabinet minister Judy LaMarche. And there's a picture of Dusty and Judy LaMarche over here and at the airport. And something about Judy LaMarche that very few people do. We knew she was in the Liberal government. But during World War II, she was an officer in the Canadian Army. And she spoke fluent Japanese. So her job was to interrogate all the Japanese prisoners. And the reason she was a Japanese speaker was because her parents were missionaries and she was born abroad. Here we have Kay Kritzweiser. She started at the Regina leader post in 1924. Wait for it, at age 14. She wrote a columns for girls called Lavender of the Lighthouse. In 1954, we see Kay here as one of the best dressed women in Canada of that year. And this photo appeared in Liberty magazine. Later, Kay moved to the Globe and Mail. In 1963, she was the first person ever to interview Marshall McLuhan, what you're doing. He was a University of Toronto professor, nicknamed the Global Village Guru. Kay's legendary interview with Marshall McLuhan can still be found on the internet. Kay spent 20 years as the Globe's art critic. Like Angela Burke, Kay had a bottomless expense account to go wherever the wind blew her. Here we have cub reporter Marilyn Dunlop with Dorothy Howard of the Toronto Telegram. Some of you will remember the old pink telegram. This is 1950. They were assigned to go to Port Dalhousie to interview Miss Toronto, 1950. And you see Marilyn's got Miss Toronto's banner around her chest. They both wore baggy bathing suits. Dorothy Howard was known by all the news hands at the old press club as the sponge. Nobody ever outscooped Dorothy Howard. In 1949, Dorothy won the very first National Newspaper Award for a series about Newfoundland joining the Dominion of Canada. Dorothy and fellow reporter Peter Worthington covered the assassination of President John Kennedy. For the record, Worthington was co-founder of the Toronto Sun after the Pink Telegram folded. He declared Dorothy Howard the finest reporter he ever worked with. This is Olive Dickinson. She's a cub reporter at the Regina Leader Post, 1941. During World War II in Regina, Olive's daily job was to read military death lists and meet the troop trains to interview surviving soldiers. She wrote sad stories of grief and survival. By 1950, Olive, a single mother, took a higher paying job at the Toronto Globe and Mail. As women's editor there, Olive wished to print stories about women's issues, not just about recipes and weddings. In the 1950s, the word sex could not be printed. So one day, Olive assigned a cub reporter to write about retarded children stuck in institutions. That cub reporter used the word masturbation, which was quickly censored. That rookie reporter was none other than Michelle Landsberg, who married NDP leader Stephen Lewis. Michelle moved to the Toronto Star, where she became a powerful feminist voice. Michelle told me, if I hadn't been the cutest thing in shoe leather, my career never would have happened. And believe me, none of the newspapers, the guys in the newspapers, ever hired any fat, pimply girls. Here, guess who? Here. This is Stacia Ivasek, a Cape Breton miner's daughter. She started at the Glace Bay Gazette in 1942. She surfaced at the Toronto Star in 1945, where she was given Ernest Hemingway's old typewriter. And when I joined the Star in the early 80s, Stacia still had that typewriter on her desk, and I dare say it's in the Star newsroom somewhere, Hemingway's typewriter now. Okay, fast forward to 1966. Here we see, guess who? Pet, Pierre Elliott Trudeau chatting with glamorous Stacia. The story, the Star sent Stacia to Ottawa to cover the opening of the National Arts Centre. Stacia and a photographer crashed the party, but died. Hope it's not my fault.
No,
it's
it's
not your
got a
fault.
minor good sound.
No, the batteries are almost dead, I think.
I can talk. Can they hear me?
So, keep going.
Okay. Anyway, the story is the Star sent Stacia to Ottawa to cover the opening of the National Arts Centre. Stacia and a photographer from the Star crashed the party, so security was trying to throw them out. Pierre knew Stacia and said they could stay. Then the privileged guests, of course, thought Stacia was Trudeau's date. And look at this photo. It could be true the way they're looking at each other. The reality here, Canadian politicians and celebrities knew all the reporters. Even in my day, I could get a prime minister out of a bathtub for a quote. and did. The reality here, before TV, we all know this, before TV, Twitter, internet, print was the only publicity for every newsworthy person. And they all depended on reporters for this and magazine writers. Here we have Stacia again. She had traveled the world as a fashion reporter at the Star, Paris, New York, and Rome. Her lifestyle, like ritzy lifestyle, was financed by the Toronto Star. Stacia lunched at Peggy Guggenheim's palace in Venice, wrote about a party she attended with Elizabeth Taylor, Aristotle Onassis. She scooped the country with previews of Margaret Trudeau's trousseau, and Stacia scooped the entire world with news about Jackie Kennedy's marriage to Aristotle Onassis. Stacia was an aggressive little reporter and also the queen of gossip, a great source for my book, lots of scuttlebutt. Now here we have Stacia 20 years later after the Pierre Trudeau incident. She is 65. The Star's women editor at the time, Ellie Tesher, tells Stacia she has to retire or write a column for old people. No way is Stacia, I was there, I witnessed this. No way is Stacia going to write about old people, and she pumps and stomps out of the newsroom. After a couple of days, she realizes it's the age of reason, the old folk or the highway. So here she is delivering Meals on Wheels for the Age of Reason column. Oh, but now I will continue with Stacia for a minute, because 10 years later, Stacia is still at the Star. Is this working?
Yeah.
She's still at the Star 10 years later. She's 75 years old, still with Hemingway's typewriter on her desk. And this time they're determined to fire her. So this time her Star editor is none other than Linwood Barclay, now the famous mystery writer. So Linwood doesn't know what to do. So he says, okay, Stacia, we're going up to the King Edward Hotel, so bar. So they drank the whole day away at the King Edward bar. And in the end, Stacia did retire. And when she died in 2009, Linwood wrote the most hilarious story about their booze up at the King Edward. And I quoted part of it in News Girls. Here we have Kay Kritzweiser in the back. Now remember, she was the best dressed woman in Canada in 1954. Now she's in a frumpy hat and coat, never mind. She is art critic at the Globe and Mail. And she's at the launch of The Archer at Toronto's new City Hall, 1966. In the foreground, Toronto Mayor Phil Givens with sculptor Henry Moore. Here's a close-up of Kay Kritzweiser. We all called her KK. Here's a close-up of KK. As you can see, she's dutifully scribbles quotes and notes. Here's Kay again. This time, she's with Toronto artist York Wilson at an opening of one of his gallery shows in 1965. Wilson created a mural for the lobby of the O'Keefe Center, now Meridian Hall. His Picasso-esque mural is still there if you look up, over the entrance. KK again. This time she's got a tea cozy on her head. She is interviewing Truman Capote at the Sutton Place Hotel. In 1975, Capote was promoting his book, The Grass Harp. Kay is clutching her signed copy. In reality, KK was a gal about town, spike heels, bright red lips. She fancied herself a vamp. She smoked black Sobranis, you know, the long cigarette holder like Betty Davis. KK blew beautiful smoke rings. She was seen at every soiree. Kay was loads of fun, my favorite reporter. But make no mistake, she was a clever, diligent journalist. Here we're back in North Bay with Joan Holleben, with part of the judo team, 1955. She's arm in arm with photographer Johnny McNeil. In 1960, Joan and McNeil were recruited by the Globe and Mail. Both of them spent their entire careers there. Joan was an award-winning medical reporter in Toronto. KK again. This time it's Kay Kritzweiser's 90th birthday. She's celebrating with AGO director William Withrow. By then, Kay is living in a senior's residence on Mount Pleasant. Up the street, there was a bar called the Chicken Deli, which some of you will remember. It's my favorite Kay story. Now, Kay loved her vodka martinis. So every day she would put on her high heels, fire engine red lipstick, and sashay up to the Chicken Deli, sit on a stool and drink a martini or two. She was in her 90s. A server would escort her back to Britton House. KK had vodka, as she called it, in her freezer until the day she died, just 2 months short of her 100th birthday. And I confess, I slurped up dozens of martinis with KK over the years. Boy, we had fun. Oh, back, arrow for back. Now, this is Joan Holleben again, still at the Nugget, 1956. Could there be a more Canadian photograph? RCMP Games officer, a frozen beaver. If you'll look, you'll see in the background a trap line. And Joan in woolen trews, woolen tartan trousers. And of course, a pencil, no pen because ink freezes in the Arctic. Now, this is Olive Dickinson. We saw her as a cub reporter. She's still at the Regina Leader Post, but here she is visiting, of all things, a Métis relative in Saskatchewan. This is 1945. She's with her first daughter sitting on the ground there. And do you notice there's a fawn there? There's actually a baby lamb, a deer. Anyway, Olive confessed to me she was in denial about her Indian blood until middle age. By the 60s, as I'd said before, Olive was women's editor at the Globe and Mail. After her children were launched, Olive left the Globe and moved to Ottawa to work in the public relations at the National Museum. One day, she was in a storeroom surrounded by First Nations objects. The penny dropped about her native blood. She went back to university, and she was the first person ever to earn a PhD for studies of North America's Indigenous tribes. After retirement, Olive became a beloved and revered First Nations elder. And believe me, you cannot make up Olive's story from the bush. to ultimately winning an Order of Canada. It's better than any movie you've ever seen. Oh, this is Lieutenant Governor Hillary Weston. New Year's Day levy at year 2000. Yours truly was assigned with Toronto Star photographer to get to hell up to Queen's Park to see what's going on there. After all, it's New Year's Day. So off I go. As a general reporter, I never knew what I'd be doing. Murder, a fire, waiting for a coroner, or going to a fancy schmancy cocktail party. This being winter, January 1st, you see me dressed warmly. I have on galoshes, corduroy pants, and my mother's antique Persian lamb coat. Hillary took one look at me and she said, "What are you wearing?" And then she looked further and she said, what are you carrying? And I held up 2 plastic Shoppers bags. And she laughed her head off because, of course, her husband owned Shoppers at the time. So anyway, the Star report photographer with me snapped the picture of Hillary and I laughing. But she knew me well because not only did I interview her several times, out of school story, I made up quotes for her. I would phone her and say, "You really meant to say this, didn't you?" "Yes, yes, yes, that's what I meant to say." Because she really couldn't. This is Marilyn Dunlop. Remember the gal with the banner over her chest? This is Marilyn. I visited her in her nursing home in Kitchener in January 2017. We had vino, ice cream, and lots of laughs for lunch. Marilyn died 2 months later in March 2017. We'll see more about her career in another couple of pictures. After Marilyn died, there were only 2 of my news girls left, Joan Holleben and Dusty Weinberg in Montreal. Now, this is a historical photo. This is 1948 at the Toronto Star. This is a committee forming the first newspaper union. The woman there, Gat-Tooth, she was Marjorie Earle. She was a tough sports and news reporter. Gat-Tooth, 6 feet tall and usually dressed in a severe black suit. Also pictured here is Beelen Hondrik, ultimately part owner of the Star. Ben Rose, later editor of the Jewish Daily News, and Dennis Braithwaite, a columnist who wrote all kinds of stories about Toronto. York University, the publisher of News Girls, lost this photograph, the only one in existence. I was not amused. Well, now here we have something different. This is Kathy Smythe. She was a cub reporter at the Toronto Star in the 1950s when Ruth Hammond, the other lady here, was women's editor. Ruth was hired at the Star during World War II. When she married and became pregnant, of course, she had to leave. That was the rule for all girls, married and or pregnant and married, not welcome in the workplace. Never mind, by the 1960s, these gals were the most powerful public relations persons in Toronto. We see them in front of the colonnade here. They were in charge of all the hoopla to do with the launch of this modern apartment and shop complex. A clever Kathy later coined a slogan for the Royal Ontario Museum. Rome wasn't built in the day. Obviously, a takeoff of the old slogan, Rome wasn't built in a day. Ruth Hammond is credited with inventing the public relations industry in Canada. A Ruth Hammond Award is presented annually to the best college student studying public relations. Ruth died at Belmont House in 2021. By the way, all the newsgirls lived to be 90 to 100 and something. Never mind the rye and ginger ale and the smoking and everything. And standing in telephone booths, you know, dictating stories, just like in Lois Lane. Oh, here we have Maureen Killer Keller. She was editor of the Star's special sections, you know, the ones that are stuffed into the, used to be stuffed into the Saturday newspaper. This is the late 1980s. She and graphic artist James Fairbairn are at a reception for Lieutenant Governor Lincoln Alexander. Maureen Keller was an English immigrant hired as a news editor at the Toronto Star in the 1960s. Mo was a clever and savvy newswoman. Later, she was promoted to oversee the special sections. She was one tough cookie. Her motto, I sell my talent, they buy it. As queen of the Star's Saturday inserts, she generated millions of dollars in advertising revenue for Tour Star. So she too had an expense account. Most days, Maureen enjoyed a liquid lunch, guess where, at the King Edward Bar. And she bragged that her monthly hooch and luncheon bills were in the thousands. When Mo retired, I happened to walk by her office and there were cleaners in there with big green garbage bags, filling them all up with empty liquor bottles. Loads of stories about Mo Keller that I couldn't put in a book. But it's legendary at the press club. This is Angela Burke, our cover girl again. This time she's holding a profile of American First Lady Mamie Eisenhower. This reportage in the Toronto Star won her the Canadian Women's Press Club Award, 1954. There's no press clubs anymore of any description because young people don't do that kind of thing. Another time, the Star assigned Angela to follow Lester Pearson's political campaigns. As you know, Pearson was prime minister from 1963 to 1968. The press followed Pearson's career to Ottawa for the Liberal Party fundraising auction. Apparently, a farmer donated 3 geese, no bids. So Lester Pearson took off his bow tie, put it around the neck of one of the geese, and of course, the bids went sky high. Angela wrote a very amusing story about that incident. Angela Burke again, flying high in a private plane with movie star and TV star Robert Cummings. During her career at the Star, Angela hobnobbed and partied with Frank Sinatra, Lord Beaverbrook, Cary Grant, Randolph Churchill, Sophia Loren, et cetera, I read all those stories in archives. She admitted she was most smitten with Sinatra, Old Blue Eyes. After the Stars, Angela hosted a TV show in Ottawa. In 1963, she interviewed the inventor of the Jolly Jumper of all things. I saw a photo of Angela with a famous baby in the jumper. That child was John Kennedy. In 1966, Angela served on the Royal Commission for the Status of Women. Here we're back in Montreal, Dusty Feinberg interviewing a museum man, Expo 67. He holds an Aboriginal War Club, perhaps from New Zealand. For most of her life, Dusty was a frivolous socialite reporter. Then towards the end of her career, she wrote serious stories, including one about a mission she went on to the Arctic to rescue Eskimo babies dying in a flu epidemic. Also a feminist piece about the Ford Motor Company not having any female employees at all. And towards the end of her career, she was writing important medical stories. Her newspaper career ended when the Montreal Star closed down in 1979 due to a printer's strike. Day one, June Callwood at the Globe and Mail, 1942. June is 18 years old. She is wearing a green checked suit with a box pleated skirt. June and her mother hand stitched every inch of that suit. They were so poor, they didn't even have access to a treadle sewing machine. June arrived in the newsroom that day in 1942 with bleeding feet from cheap wartime shoes. However, all the boys in the Globe newsroom ran towards this lovely girl. June admitted to me it took about 3 years to learn how her craft as a reporter. The male reporters from the Globe, the Toronto Star, and the Telegram all helped her with her copy. Soon June married Globe sports reporter Trent Frayne. That's a whole other story. You can read all about it in the book. June was always vain about her long, elegant legs. The last time I saw her in person was at on Dale Avenue, you know, in front of the condo there. And we were both carrying casseroles. I was going to one dinner party. June was going to another dinner party. Me, boots, heavy coat, big baggy trousers. Dead of winter it is. June. High heels, bare tanned legs, and a mini skirt. She was in her 70s. In 1985, June received the Order of Canada for her social activism. Here we have Joan Hollobin, again intrepid. This is 1955. She's still at the Nugget. She is at the face of the Bocage gold mine in Lake Nipissing. How she talked mine owners into allowing a woman to descend to the face of a mine, God only knows, look, full gear. By 1960s, Joan had the medical beat at the Globe and Mail. In 1972, she lived in a cell at Penetangwasheen, a hospital for the criminally insane, no guards. There she interviewed rapists and murderers. She wrote stunning stories. Joan was also the first reporter to write about a man undergoing a sex change. Joan won dozens of awards for her medical reportage. There's an annual Hollobin Award for the best medical story written in Canada. Recent winner was Globe and Mail reporter Andre Picard. He's still reporting there about the COVID plague. Joan died last year at age 104. She was the last of my news girls. We've got just a couple more. And here you can read Toronto Star, Boris Primo and Marilyn Dunlop, her with the 1950s banner. They're in Yugoslavia. There was an earthquake. Marilyn was about the first female foreign correspondent in Canada. Later, Marilyn took on the medical beat at the Toronto Star, and in 1987, she won a national newspaper award for the first report ever about laser brain surgery. She and Joan Holleben, of course, both medical reporters, became lifetime friends. Now here we're back to a cub reporter. This is the same Marilyn. She's a cub reporter on assignment at the Pink Toronto Telegram, 1951. The editor McFarlane yelled, "Can you swim, honey? Get down to the CNE and see what all this water stuff is about." Here is Marilyn taking a ski lesson from a hunk from Florida. In the 50s, the telly made pretty Marilyn do all sorts of silly things like wearing yellow short shorts, yellow, and walking down Bay Street at lunchtime. Well, you can imagine the men out for lunch seeing this vision. Another time they made her drive a dump truck in downtown Toronto and tried to back it up. The men in the newsroom thought this was hilarious to make pretty girls do silly things. You know, but given Marilyn went with the flow and wrote funny, upbeat, and witty stories about these ridiculous shenanigans. And second last but not least, this is Olive Dickinson again, who became the Indian elder during the 1960s. At the Globe, she won six, count them, six Elizabeth Arden Awards for her fashion pages and writing. Olive hated the frivolous fashion world, a dream job for any woman back then. Olive left her comfortable post at the Globe and, as I said, became an important academic and a celebrated advocate for Indigenous communities. She received an Order of Canada in 1966. Okay, here we have, coming up, last but not least. This is Sima Holt, Vancouver's Sun. She was hired as a cub reporter in 1941. Sima loved the seamy underbelly of Vancouver. As a crime reporter, Sima was friends with criminals and scallywags. She saved 3 men on death row from the gallows, thus earning an Order of Canada. After 30 years at the Vancouver Sun, Sima was talked into running for the Liberals in Vancouver West. In 1974, here she is, plotting election strategy with PM Pierre Trudeau. Sima won the election that year, 1974, and so did the Liberal Party. But in 1978, both Pierre and Sima lost the election, especially because due to the Liberals' energy policy, more or less, in the West. Ironically, son Justin Trudeau, as Prime Minister, faced the same issue with Western voters, this time the carbon tax. After Sima lost the election, Peter Worthington, co-owner of the Sun Syndicate, allowed Sima to rant in all the Sun newspapers. Sima also wrote an autobiography that's hilarious, Memoirs of a Loose Cannon. The title was suggested by Peter Worthington. She loved being called a loose cannon. She thought it was a compliment. She died in 2015 in Vancouver. I will end with a quote from Sima Holt MP in Ottawa. In Ottawa, Sima turned the House of Commons into a circus. Once during a debate, Sima was addressed by a fellow MP as the lady from Vancouver. Well, she leaped to her feet and screeched as high as she could. I am here, gentlemen, as a member of Parliament and not as a lady of any description. She had them roaring with laughter. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for putting up with my ramblings. Any questions?
I think just in the
Anything?
interest of time, we'll
Okay.
save the questions till afterwards, just
Yeah.
because we want to wrap up
Great.
shortly. But you will be here with your,
Yeah, I'll be
book
here
and-
with the books if anybody's
and I,
interested.
on behalf of the club, I'm going to ask Jackie to come and thank you.
Thank you very much, Donna G.
I don't
You
know whether this is
ended
working or
your,
not.
your presentation with a quote, and I'm going to start my thank you with a quote. I'm reminded of something that Oscar Wilde said. In America, the president governs for 4 years, but journalists govern forever. And George Orwell, who said, journalism is printing something that someone doesn't want printed. So, first of all, thank you so much for bringing us these amazing stories about outstanding women, because if you hadn't written it down, no one would have remembered.
And that's the
That
truth.
seems to be the way of women in history, because for many of us here, this really was a reminder of how we got our information in the world. Remember, folks, the North Bay Nugget, the Aurelia Packet and Times, the Huntsville Herald, the Glace Bay Gazette. This was how we learned about the world in our day. And the women played such an important role in doing that. You know, folks, it was only a short time ago, and you made reference to it, that women who were pregnant were not really, they were not allowed to be in the work world.
Right up into the 60s.
Right, and before this, the year of the Royal Commission on the Status of Women, women could not get married women could not get a loan from any bank without their husband's signature. And I can verify that because I tried all along Bloor Street, from Bathurst to Young, and no one would give me a loan because I would list my husband and his income. So that's a story. Your story really is a wonderful testament for the young women of the world who should really look toward journalism as a wonderful career, given the age that many of these women live to. So again, thank you so much for
Ryan Ginger Ale did it. And martinis.
Anyway, thank you so much for bringing the story to us.
Thank you.
I'm gonna ask you to hold your happy bucks till next week, just because we're running out of time. So David, you had a couple things you wanted to
Yeah,
announce?
sure. Two things. So you all got an email from me this week in regards to volunteering for the farmers market. If you are interested in joining the group doing the promoting the club at the market on the Sunday, please come and see me afterwards. I've got a sign up sheet here if you want to do that. As well, in 2 weeks time tonight, we're having another Rotary Connect meeting. That is happening. If you want to come to that, I didn't know if Anna wanted to come to that to explain the global grant. It's an opportunity for you to talk to other clubs in our area about what's going on with that. But anyone else who's interested in coming to one of those, I don't know if Nan's coming. Are you going?
Yeah, I could go.
Okay. So yeah, so that's happening in 2 weeks time. If you're interested in going, let me know and I'll give you all the information. Thanks.
Okay. Lars, would you come and give us our weekly information, please?
Well, I will be short, and instead of describing it, we had a board meeting yesterday, and I referred to Cliff Dotterman, the funniest president Rotary has ever had, and we have used in training purposes many times at district level a video. If I were president again, and he gives, he shares what he would do differently from the first time. And it struck me afterwards yesterday that if I were president again, God forbid, it will be in-person meetings. I think Zoom is destroying the flow of information and make participants, including me, to misbehave. So it's would be good to have them in person. I also think, and this is something serious, do we really need monthly board meetings? I think we could even go at least to bi-monthly or maybe even once per quarter. And Walter, that is something for you. And that leads me to what we did discuss, yell, argue. I don't know exactly, but two things we talked about.
It wasn't yelling, it was spirited discussion.
Anyway, that one was committee structure. And most have sort of expressed that we have too many committees. We looked at that yesterday. I think we came to a conclusion that youth and community service should combine.
Also environment.
And environment is somewhere in there too, yeah. And bingo happily falls under fine fundraising. And again, this is up like mainly for Walter to look at, but that there's, for instance, no need for the chair or bingo, whoever will look at that next year, to be on the board, unless she or he is pointed out as a resource, and so on and so forth. So that gives an opportunity to bring in some fresh blood to the board. The other thing we talked about was the ongoing story about our meeting structure and so on. As you know, the Toronto Club has gone down to 2 meetings per month. We decided to have excuse me, a committee under the leadership of Walter, with Walter III and Jackie, and we need 2 members from the club at large. And because we have 85% of our members are 60 or older, there's a large group who hasn't indicated their age, but I can kind of guess. I would like to suggest strongly that maybe we get a couple of the younger members of the club, because this is the future of the club. We are not going to make arrangements for the gray-haired people, but we need to, in order to bring in new members, we need to find younger and active members. So those who are interested, talk to Walter Sotka, and I will give some of my thoughts about these issues, and I'm trying to get the 15-minute city or neighborhood, Brexit, and Wayne Gretzky into membership and meeting structure. But that will be in this week's Smått och Gott. So you have to wait at least till tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lars, could we not have people, anybody volunteer here? Because we'd like to hit the ground running.
Why let Walter run this? I suggest that people may think it's.
Maria has an announcement.
Hi. Short, why haven't you seen me so much? Because we have a cafe at the church on Wednesdays between 11 and 1. And by some reason, they think that I should be there. I don't know why. Anyway, very short, just heads up of an in-person meeting, and now I want to put together all, like, I think it's like 25 or 30 mails, what do you say, Walter, about a wine tasting. Yes, it will happen. What we know is it will be a wine tasting. You have to be there in person. I will not do it via Zoom. It's not so boring, you know. And it will be the 5th of June. So note that. More information about exact price, exact where, and so on will come. But now you know, 5th of June, mark the day.
Thank you.
And if I could add to that, we're in the works as well of doing that, and it'll be at the Hampton House, the room there, and it will be the 5th of June. But anyway, more information will come as we work through this.
Thank you very much. Do we have anything else? Any other announcement? There's a foundation meeting following this meeting. So if we're finished then for the good of Rotary, I'm going to adjourn the meeting and just point you to the table where you can speak with our speaker. Yes, Ron?
Lisa, our speaker today, Donna Jane, took me back 60 years in the history of our club. One of our members at that time was felt by David Anderson, very active in the Liberal Party, a close personal friend who was a war healer. His wife was Doris Anderson, who subsequently became the editor of Chatelaine. And at the time of the women's rights movement, she was very, very active. And we had many events when Doris would come to David to Rotary functions, and we got a different insight, more detailed perhaps than today, but a real insight into the power of the media in those days influencing our lives. And today's talk just complemented and refreshed that wonderful memory I have of about 60 years ago in this club. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, so I will adjourn the meeting officially, but please stay for the foundation meeting or come and speak to Donna Jean. Thank you very much.